America is a nation that was built on hard work, free enterprise, and the freedom that comes with owning private property. Animal ownership and animal enterprise have been the cornerstone of our nation and the foundation of private property. Our Constitution and the Bill of Rights have provided the foundation for America's success while protecting its citizens. But under our very noses, America is changing. Federal, state, and local government have been quietly chipping away at our Constitution, chipping away at the protections that keep us free. Mob rule and emotion have too often replaced the rule of law. You don't realize it, but you and your property are at risk, and the way into your home and property is sleeping quietly right next to you, your family pet. All it takes is one anonymous false complaint of animal abuse or neglect. Could be a neighbor, a disgruntled employee, or someone who you may not even know. But once law enforcement arrives at your door, your family, your firearms, your property, your reputation are now under attack.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Buzz Talk Live. For centuries, those who own, raise, breed, farm, and work with animals have been revered and admired for what they do. Today across America, the rights to own, breed, and care for these animals is under attack by animal rights activists and the increasing influence they have over our government and non-government agencies. My guest tonight, Mindy Patterson, president and co-founder of the Cavalry Group, a member-based company made up of animal owners and animal-related businesses, defends the rights of these law-abiding animal caretakers all over the country. Mindy positions herself in the front lines in Washington, D.C. to advocate for the welfare and well-being of these animals and fights tooth and nail to protect them from the radical animal activist crooked agenda. Along with a battery of volunteers writing letters every day to their congressmen and women, the Cavalry Group hopes to correct many of these terrible policies that are being written under our very noses. So please chat and welcome President and co-founder of the Cavalry Group, Mindy Patterson, to Buzz Talk Live. Hey there, Mizzy. How are you?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. It's great to be with you, George.
It was it's a pleasure having you on the show tonight. A little issues there before the show, but we're on. I think you can hear me, right? Everything is okay?
I can hear you just fine. Yes, no problem.
Okay. First off, where are we tonight? Where are you remoting from?
From an undisclosed location in the Midwest. No, I'm in okay. Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. Oh, that's great. I love Oklahoma.
Yes, sir.
You know,
yes.
The last time I was in Oklahoma, we went out for some barbecue and we got hit with this terrible tornado. And I think you just had some tornadoes there, right? Just recently?
Not that I'm aware of. We haven't had any wild weather yet to my knowledge, but
okay.
It's coming up shortly. Spring is always pretty crazy here.
Yeah, it is. And when it hails, boy, I tell you, it's like golf balls coming down.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Mindy, I tell you, I'm lucky to have you tonight because you're going to really spotlight and shed some light on an interesting topic that affects a lot of people across the country and their businesses and ownership of animals. But before we get started, I'd like to know, how you got involved in advocating for this and creating the company. Did you create the company, or was it the company already established? How did this all happen?
My husband and I created the company. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Yes.
I have been a horse owner most of my life, and I became very involved and engaged in the horse community and the horse industry.
Oh, okay.
When we lived in Missouri, I was on the Missouri Equine Council, and then in 2010, the Humane Society of the United States came to our state of Missouri with a ballot initiative. Mm-hmm. And it was a very deceptive ballot initiative that claimed that it wanted to further regulate quote unquote humane standards for raising dogs, dog breeders. But the definitions within the bill were incredibly dangerous. And so I jumped in with both feet to fight this ballot initiative to protect animal owners and animal related businesses. And what it really boils down to is ownership of private property. That's really what they're trying to erode our Constitution. But the way I got into this was during the campaign when we were fighting this very deceptive agenda. We had dog breeders and farmers and ranchers from all across the state of Missouri coming into our campaign office. And these are salt of the earth people, and they were being vilified and they were being lied about. These are law-abiding citizens, law-abiding animal businesses that are regulated at the state and some also at the federal level.
Wow. Who
jump through hoops to be in compliance. And, they have all these standards that they have, unannounced inspections and so on and so forth. And so we witnessed this onslaught and this attack about their businesses and just saw these flat out lies, in addition to the fact that these animal rights groups and local animal control masquerade as law enforcement. These are not the police, but they masquerade as law enforcement and show up at your door to steal your animals because of an anonymous tip. And so we launched the Cavalry Group in 2010, shortly after the campaign was over, to create this member-based company to protect against unwarranted search and seizure, which has been happening across the United States, rapid fire. So that's really the cornerstone of what membership provides, is protection against unwarranted search and seizure. But we also have been working diligently at the legislative level, at the local, state, and federal levels to lobby against animal rights driven legislation, which has escalated to a fever pitch, especially this year. It has been insane. Wow. And the legislative battle, honestly, is ground zero to protect your rights. If you own animals, if you have an animal related business. So we help our members coordinate efforts and do all those things. So it was born out of the campaign in 2010.
Wow. Wow. That's great. And the passion that you have, because your love for horses and all that, but the part of the country that you're in, with ranchers and people that own farms, a lot of animals, it's a big part of their life, but in the metropolitan cities, not so much. And, usually it's the metropolitan cities that create the problems for middle America, and with all these activists that start, pounding the doors of Congress and trying to get their legislation through. So, it's a person like yourself that kind of, I don't know, runs block, so to speak, the sports term, and and tries to shed light on, what's really going on with these people that own animals and work with animals, for profit, for food, for raising, all the boxes, you check them all off. And, but that's very noble what you're doing. And I'll tell you, I went on your website, very impressive website. You got it all going on there, Mindy, and, hats off to you. But I want to speak to you a little bit tonight. I got a lot of scenes to go through. But as far as what's happening currently with legislation, and this I have it here is this PAUSE, PAUSE, the ballot initiative in Colorado. That's new, right? That's really a hot topic right now.
Yes. Well, Colorado has been going through some interesting things legislatively since Governor Polis and his first gentleman took office. And it has been very tumultuous because they are animal rights ideologues. So they are injecting their beliefs into policy at very, very rapidly in the state of Colorado. Right. And unfortunately, the legislature is very left-leaning in the state of Colorado now. So a lot of these policies and measures are passing. But yes, this ballot initiative, the acronym is PAWS, and it stands for Protect Animals from Unnecessary Suffering and Exploitation. And it's important to remember that the animal rights extremists, animal rights in and of itself is a political agenda. Okay. Right. It's chipping away and eroding incrementally by our way of life in the United States, by altering Americans' views about animal ownership and animal use through the media, through schools, through legislation, and even through litigation, but mostly through legislation. And their goal is to end animal use of every capacity, from
and I put up
the
this
puppy on your lap to the steak on your plate. Yep.
I put up this definition, and it speaks to that point exactly. And the differences, the difference between animal rights and animal welfare. And, animal welfare is what you're all about. And what, it's describe the word husbandry. What is that exactly?
Well, that's a very important point, that word that you just brought up, because husbandry is truly under attack. And husbandry is the time-tested agriculture practices to make sure that animals are content. Making sure that if you're a dairy farmer, if you're a cattle rancher, if you're raising and breeding dogs, the goal is to make sure that your animals are healthy and content and well cared for. And that encompasses welfare. Animal rights wants to chip away at those. Look, animal agriculture sometimes isn't pretty. I wish I could wrap it up in a pretty bow for people. There are practices that have to be done to maintain the health and well-being of animals that to animal rights extremists consider to be cruel. Castration, other things that are done on a regular basis to maintain a herd of cattle. As an example. Dairy cows, same thing. All of these things are animal husbandry practices that people who know nothing about raising and breeding animals are having a lot to say and influencing policy with an emotional agenda. And what I've witnessed in the past decade is nothing short of a radical transformation in the way and philosophy that regulatory agencies are enforcing laws. And it is because, quite frankly, a lot of these animal rights ideologues have infiltrated into the agencies that are tasked with overseeing the regulation of animal agriculture and a lot of these animal-related businesses. And that's really scary.
So I put this up. This is actually, this is from your website, Animal Welfare, Know the Difference. And, you speak about it, just as you did. And it's usually the people that are the problem, the people that cause the problems are people that don't really understand, what cattle ranchers go through, and farmers and people that work with elephants and tigers and own them. So all they do is they, like you said, it's ideologue, and it's putting their ideology in the forefront, and they bang on the doors of Congress, and they change the minds, and they lobby. So now, and then they raised all this money, and the money doesn't go to the animals, right?
No, it does not. And how would that make you feel? If, here's the thing. There's
my
a
dog
lot
food
of
is going through the roof here.
Yeah,
no
kidding. Well, no, it's true. So, there's a lot of well-intended animal owners and people out there who love animals. We all love animals. People very well-intended who open up their checkbooks and write big checks to these groups who they truly believe are there to care for these animals. But the reality is less than 1% of that money goes toward, the Humane Society of the United States raises roughly $180 million a year just on donations from well-intended people. But wouldn't you feel betrayed if you wrote a check to the Humane Society of the United States to find out that most of your money is going to lawyers and lobbyists and to ballot initiative campaigns like what you just mentioned in Colorado. That's where the money's going. And what it's doing is eroding our ability to grow and raise our food in America, which is going to become a national security issue pretty darn fast. We're already there. America is at a tipping point. Okay. And these radical groups are changing the way that Americans view animal agriculture and those who grow and raise their food. It's been happening for decades, but we're at a tipping point in the United States where it is going to become dangerous. I mean, when COVID broke out, remember how all the food disappeared from the shelves of the grocery store? Well, it's going to get even worse if we continue down this road and allowing these radicals to set policy. These are keyboard warriors. They don't know anything about growing and raising our food.
I have a clip later in the show that I'm going to play from a doctor that was in this documentary. But I want to speak to everybody loves the circus. Everybody goes to the circus. They love the circus. They attend. They see the animals, and so speak to the animals that are used in the circus. They're under fire too, because especially with the cancel culture that's going on. This affects all across the board. From Aunt Jemima to Uncle Ben's to circus animals. I mean, it's crazy.
It is.
It really is crazy. Something that we enjoyed as a kid, going to these events and seeing these wild animals. And yes, they're wild animals, but these animals, they eat better than you and I. I mean, they're taken care of. They're groomed. They're show business animals, and it's unfortunate that the ears of Congress really they're like, sure, let me write this. Sure, here's my signature. Yeah, do whatever you got to. They don't understand. They don't take the time to hear people like yourself, and if they do, they either have a deaf ear or it's not on their agenda. You know what I mean?
Yes, the main argument in favor of the circus is the fact that animals in private hands, like Ringling Brothers Circus and other circuses and private zoos and so forth, are participating in a very important aspect of conservation. The animal rights groups are trying to make it illegal to own wild animals, but these animals are domesticated. They were not plucked from their native country and brought here to perform. That's not how this works. They were born in human care, private ownership, and if it wasn't for the circus, we would not have as many Asian elephants in the United States as we have today, but those numbers are quickly dwindling. And the circus has been one of the best ways to for conservation of Asian elephants ever. Yeah. That's the sad part that Americans don't realize. They've just banned something. And you know what happens when an animal doesn't have a job? When an animal is no longer working, the owners can't afford to feed them anymore. And like in Mexico, where the circus was banned, across Mexico, they euthanized all their animals.
Oh boy,
they're gone. And now they have animatronics and inflatable elephants, and nobody wants to see that. You don't care about animals unless you can go touch and smell and feel and have an interchange with these animals. This is very special. It's a gift what these circuses and these private zoos have been doing. Yes. And these animals are not doing well in their native habitat due to poaching. Right. And they face terrible starvation, encroachment of development, and so on and so forth. If it wasn't for these owners here in the United States that are working to preserve these animals that are endangered, or it really is true conservation of species that is taking place through the circin.
And
but
it's not only the circus. It's SeaWorld. It's the aquarium in Miami. I mean, beautiful. These mammals are again, this is show business. And they're utilized to show off their talent in what they can do. And again, they're taken care of, they're groomed, they're pampered. And so to really, I don't know, to cancel them out and to, have these radical groups, destroy what we grew up loving to go to, there's not going to be anything left to see.
That's right. Well, they're lying about SeaWorld. They're lying about Ringling Brothers. They're lying about dog breeders. They're lying about animal agriculture. They're lying about everything. And these people, wake up, America, have some discernment. Yeah. These people are regulated. And that's the other thing about, see places like SeaWorld and other sea life aquariums and animal exhibitors. They are highly regulated. They're required by USDA and oftentimes at the state level as well to be licensed and inspected. Unannounced inspections. I mean, people just jump through hoops that have chosen this way of life to raise, breed, and work with animals. And it feels like such a betrayal of trust to be, they're being banned right and left across the country. Legislatively.
These are, again, going back to your previous point, working animals, working mammals, working attractions to see. And then, you go to the city and, you want to go on a horse and carriage ride. And that's something that New York is, my God, that's iconic in New York is to go on a horse and carriage ride. And again, these are under fire. These animals, these horses are really, they were, I think a couple of years ago, they were trying to get rid of them. And I think they fought and they're back. But again, this is something that's, your group is really bringing and shedding light on, because if it wasn't for you guys, a lot of these businesses really wouldn't have a leg to stand on. They're not gonna go to Congress. These people are working for a living. They're making their business grow for them and for their families, and for groups like yourself to fight for them. That's crazy great, if that's even a sentence.
That's a really important point. That's a really important point, by the way, that you've just made, because you're absolutely right. These people who work with animals for a living are up with the sun and to bed at sunset. They work all day. They do not have time to go testify in a committee hearing to protect their livelihood. But we encourage them to do so. We help people. We empower them to join us, but we do show up to the microphone on their behalf. And it's really important, because these animal rights groups, that's all they do. And they're paid to do nothing but it's a complete PR campaign that they engage in on a regular basis. And that's really what this is a PR battle, which that's the third leg, legal, legislative, and PR, and representing and advocating for our members in the media is why I'm here tonight.
It's so important. I mean, because you have these radical groups, the animal rights groups, PETA and all them, and they know that these businesses, they're not going to come out of their farms and ranches and go to so it's like they have them cornered, but it's, again, you're running block for them. You're running block for the ranches and people that own businesses that have cattle and raise cows and all that. And again, in movies, recently, one of the greatest, touching movies that I've seen in a while is The Dog's Purpose, and it's such a great little movie. And, just to see this movie, it's really touching. And to know that these animal rights groups were trying to, cancel the promotion of this film because of the dogs in the film being used. I don't know. I mean, I don't. I mean, where does it end? Where does it end?
Well, that's just it. The animal rights groups are going to keep pushing and pushing
They
until
keep
their
pushing.
point seems normal. And
Yeah.
our side,
Yeah.
which is rooted in husbandry, as you pointed out in the beginning of our conversation, until husbandry seems bad. They're trying to vilify, animal husbandry practices that, again, are time tested. For centuries we have been practicing animal husbandry in this country.
Yes.
Which has been handed down through generations. It's, is it something you can learn in a book? Sure, maybe. But most of these people who raise, breed, and work with animals have been doing this for generations, and it's been handed down from their previous generation. That's how people learn how to be a dairy farmer, learn how to be a cattle rancher, breeding dogs. That was the thing during our campaign in 2010. These great people that were coming into our campaign office, they were saying, if this passes, this is going to put me out of business. And I've been raising dogs. I have a passion for raising dogs. I was able to be a stay-at-home mom because we raised dogs, or I was able to put my kids through college because we raised animals. Raising animals and animal husbandry, animal agriculture is the cornerstone of America. And so it goes much deeper than just abolishing, and that's the thing. When I show up to these committee hearings, these animal rights groups, whether it's PETA or the Humane Society of the United States or the ASPCA or any of these groups, they want something to go away because it doesn't align with their ideology. That's right. And that's wrong. That's just, it's like you said, it's cancel culture. But they are not going to stop, George. They are not going to stop, and they're going to keep pushing until it's gone. And we can't let that happen.
No, and for the people that raise dogs and breeders and all that, sure, there's some bad apples in breeders. There's people that take advantage, and those people should be called out, for what they do, and it's wrong, and they should be really taken to court and go to prison. I mean, it's just wrong. It's just wrong what they do to the animals. But the fact that these animal rights, they just latch on to specifics, and then they just run with it. You do have this Working Animal Protection Act on your website. Speak a little bit about this. This is interesting.
Well, the Working Animal Protection Act was born out of necessity because the Humane Society of the United States and PETA have been working at the local level to pass legislation to ban outright these legal businesses. And what you just said a minute ago about unscrupulous operators, there's bad in everything. There's bad drivers, bad doctors, bad lawyers, but passing more laws to further regulate just tightens the noose and puts people out of business. And so what they've been doing at the local level is literally banning the circus, banning horse-drawn carriages, banning pony rides, banning elephant rides, banning the exhibition of animals at the fair, if you can believe that. I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. And we have a list that I think you've seen, but I mean, this is a crazy list of,
I have that.
62 cities in 29 states that have banned outright. The horse-drawn carriages and the circus and animal exhibition. And so I got tired of just playing defense all the time. So we went on offense, and we created the Working Animal Protection Act, which all it says is local municipalities cannot ban outright a legal business. That's a key phrase. These are regulated legal businesses that utilize working animals in entertainment, exhibition, education, and transportation. Period. It doesn't alter any regulatory rules or laws that are in place at the local level that are for public safety or animal welfare. It doesn't touch any of that. What it does say is that they can't be banned outright by city councils, county councils, or other political subdivisions. It's a 4-paragraph bill. Simple, easy peasy. Just don't ban these legal businesses.
Yeah,
these
exactly.
People this is how people make their living.
Yeah. I tell you, I only printed out 2 pages. There's 66 pages of this legislation that these states, Arizona, Alabama, California. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I don't have
our
enough
master list of
to go through all this.
I know. We starting around Christmas time is when state legislatures start introducing bills, and the animal rights groups that never sleep, again, they're never going to stop. They continue to push. Mm-hmm. Christmas time is when we start reading bills and we start paying attention to the states that introduce bills. And we monitor all 50 states. In fact, people watching tonight can go to our website and click the Take Action tab, and you can read all the state by state legislation that's being introduced by these animal rights groups. And then you'll see why we introduced the Working Animal Protection Act, because we want to protect lawful, legal animal enterprise in this country from, they're just tightening the noose on everybody. It's complete insanity.
Mindy, if they get their way, what's going to happen? Look, you and yeoman's work here. I mean, you're out there and you're advocating, but is it an uphill battle? Do you think it's a level playing field? Is there people, a congressman listening to you? Do you find like is something latching on? Do you have a voice because of all these radical groups?
Well, you just struck a nerve, because we're in the middle of legislative sessions at the state level. I am a federally registered lobbyist, and I am monitoring and plan to go to DC to inform congressional members, representatives and senators at the federal level about these deceptive bills. It is an uphill climb.
Sure.
The problem is that either they don't understand the difference between animal rights and animal welfare, like you talked about earlier, and they fall for the deceptive push on a lot of these bills, and they get weak kneed, because we all love animals, but they don't realize that passing more laws are not going to stop those who are already in violation of current laws. And we already have enough laws on the books to regulate, animal agriculture and pet breeders and all of that, but they're just going to keep coming until incrementally they just keep moving the goalpost till everybody gives up and quits, and that's their goal. The real problem in this country, I'm sure will not surprise you, George, but we have a lot of unfortunately a lot of legislators who fall prey to taking financial compensation and getting an endorsement from these animal rights groups, because it makes them feel good, makes them look good. And then, so they want to be reelected, right? Politicians want to be reelected, and they want to be liked. It's about money and getting, voted back into office, money and power. And unfortunately right now, when you said that, it really strikes a nerve, because we've been having hearings in Texas, for example. The House Agriculture Committee is endorsed by the Texas Humane Legislative Network. I mean, 8 out of 10 of the representatives on the House Agriculture Committee are falling for these animal rights groups, and they're allowing themselves to be endorsed.
Yeah.
And so it just gives me a sinking pit. To answer your question, no, we're not getting support.
Yeah.
People they don't have the discernment to see through these deceptive bills that really have nothing to do with the animals. That's the punchline here. The punchline that you and I talked about the other day on the phone, the punchline is it has nothing to do with the animals. It has everything to do with our Constitution. They are writing language into these bills to erode our constitutional right to due process, our constitutional right to ownership of private property. And God bless all these people who are raising animals for food and the pet industry. It is, everybody I've met do yeoman's work. They They cry when things don't go well. They are thrilled to see a cute, fluffy 8-week-old puppy celebrated and being handed off into the hands of a new loving family.
Right.
Those are highlights. But every day it is a
really
lot
is.
of work, and they love what they do. They do it because they love what they do, but they're vilified every day.
There's a booklet that you have. So speak to me about this, because this has to do with husbandry, right? And this is like a booklet that is on your website, I believe.
Yes.
And people can go there and see it. And it really describes in detail as far as the differences between, caring for the animals, like, as far as animal ownership and animal rights, and these radical groups and how they're destroying it. It's a great little booklet, a handy little booklet to go through and really educate yourself on this topic.
Thank you. We created this book because I got really tired of listening to lawmakers say, but these, when we were working against these circus bans or animal exhibition bans or whatever, and you hear these lawmakers say, well, these animals belong in the wild.
Yeah.
And my response to that is there is no wild due to poaching and habitat loss and starvation. These animals that are in private care of, in these loving hands of these owners, live in a lap of luxury, number one. Number two, these people are doing yeoman's work for protecting these species and keeping these species in existence for future generations. And I think that's really incredibly special. And it's because of private owners that we have brought back. I think this booklet also goes into some of the animals that have been brought back from extinction, or near extinction, I should say, being endangered. That is pretty unbelievable.
It's really detailed too.
The key point here is that breeding is conservation.
Right.
Without breeding programs, there is no future for these animals on the endangered list, and extinction is forever. So, many great people have brought back these animals from the brink of extinction through private ownership and through private facilities. But again, these things are vilified by these animal rights ideologues that just don't care. They don't care if they go extinct.
No.
They want them to go extinct. They would rather, they want animal abolition is really the proper term that we should be using, because they want to abolish these animals in human care completely.
You did a recent interview, I believe it was in Florida, with a Jeff Sconson.
Yes.
And paint the trail. Paint the trail? Yeah. What is that?
Paint the Trail. Jeff started, he lives in Florida, and he started a campaign because of Proposition 13, which banned the Greyhound racing down in Florida. Again, another deceptive campaign. So he jumped into the fray and started every day doing a video daily. And so the more he was new to the fight too. He didn't know anything about animal rights extremism or anything. So, but he had friends that raised greyhounds, and he was like, what is happening? This can't be happening to, to my greyhound friends. They take great care of their animals.
Yeah.
What exactly is behind this? So he started to pull back the veil. And when he found out what was really going on, he couldn't believe his eyes and ears. So he started running a campaign, and he and I got together at, All About Elephants down in Williston, Florida, where we were celebrating Elephant Appreciation Days, and which is a really awesome weekend, by the way. And he was there filming the thing, and he just did a really brief interview with me to talk about what we were there for.
I have a clip of that interview, and he speaks to about the cancel culture, and he's so real. He's laid back. He's in the fight, but he's laid back and he's easy to listen to. but he speaks from the heart, and it's a pretty little interesting clip to expose. Check it out.
Cavalry Group's there. They're the ones that help us with all legislation and legal affairs and everything else that's going on, and they will be able to point you in the right direction. It's right there at our information booth.
And I don't know if it's been going on or if it's a recent thing, but I've never seen people be censored more now than at any time in my life.
Isn't it scary?
I'm being censored myself.
Yeah.
And, I've been complaining about this for years before Zuckerberg went up to Congress, and I've been complaining about Facebook doing it and social media. And everybody uses Google and social media. That's how we converse. Yeah. And one side is being completely censored, and that's evil.
It's very
We're
evil.
heading down a very slippery slope that's not going to be good for anybody. Everybody's got different opinions, and we're supposed to be able to argue it out. And when one side steps on the other side and forces them to be quiet, that's Hitlerish.
Oh,
type
it's
stuff.
very much so. It's tyranny. It's the
Yes,
very
it is.
thing that our founding fathers established, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights to protect us from. Because at the very cornerstone, it's all about private property.
And I know.
What, Lou? I know he's black and Have we got everybody? Thank you for coming. Keep in touch.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. Those elephants. That's amazing. Just to see those guys up close like that. That's pretty amazing. But it's true what he's speaking about. About Zuckerberg and Facebook and all the cancel culture and what's going on. And this is all recent stuff. That's been in the news and how it's a chain reaction. How it just affects everything and all of our culture. From food to animals. There's another clip that I have of a filmmaker. He's a young filmmaker. His name is Jeffrey David King, J.D. King. He's a young filmmaker out west somewhere. Where is he from? Do you know?
Montana.
Oh, that's right, Montana. But he made this interesting film about the wolf reindoctrination to Yellowstone National Park that happened back in the Clinton days. And, I have a trailer, and then I have a short little clip of the documentary that he made. Let's check that out.
Great.
A different way of thinking about man, animals, and the environment has emerged in our country within the last few decades and is becoming ever more prominent in our government and the rest of American culture. This philosophy, known as environmentalism, is constantly shaping our decision-makers' thoughts and policies. It was in this mindset that the decision was made by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, with the support of numerous environmental and animal rights groups, to transplant wolves from their homeland in Canada and release them in Yellowstone National Park in central Idaho in 1995 and 96. Nothing like this had ever happened before. The agency praised their decision. It almost seemed as though they were triumphantly heralding the return of some unjustly banished royalty. But their real triumph was that, by elevating animal over man once again, this non-essential experimental population of wolves granted them access to tens of millions of dollars and greater control over both private and public property. You see, putting wolves in Yellowstone was never about saving wolves or balancing ecosystems. There was another agenda, one they would not reveal to the American public, but would see through, no matter how far they had to bend the rules, no matter how bad they had to lie, no matter how much they had to steal, no matter the cost. And they did it. What's done is done, and nobody has ever looked back since. Until now.
That looks like a great little documentary. This J.D. King, pretty impressive little filmmaker there. And
Yes.
he seems like he's almost I don't know how many documentaries that he's done, but it's well put together, and very informative. And I watched it, and what I took from it, there's a segment in the film that Dr. Stephen Van Tassels, he spoke to about the radical environmentalist hypocrisy. And I want to run this little clip here. It's about a minute or so long. And he really ties a bow on what we're talking about, and about the inner cities and not the inner cities, but the the metropolitan cities and the people that don't really get what people in middle America have to go through and how to raise. And let me shut up and run the clip.
Generally try to explain this to urbanites, because urbanites don't get it. The urbanite argues this way: well, why is the farmer shooting that coyote? The coyote just wants to eat. And so I turn that around and I say, why are you stopping that shoplifter? He just wants to eat. And then all of a sudden they kind of get it.
To help me gain a more clear understanding of man's relationship to nature, Dr. Stephen Van Tassels' name came up. He is on staff at the University of Nebraska and also holds a PhD in theology.
Some of the most radical environmentalists are people sort of in their 10th floor penthouse looking over Manhattan. They're the most far removed people from the environment that you can get. What they really have is there's sort of this vision of the environment, but yet they will attack the cockroaches like there's no tomorrow. So there's an element of what I would argue is a fundamental hypocrisy. And if you press hard enough, you'll find it. God has blessed the earth with abundance, and we keep forgetting that. I mean, part of our people are talking about free trade and how American jobs are losing. We have literally thousands of people across the country who make a portion of their living from the fur trade. But unfortunately, in our society, it's becoming increasingly demonized by a group of people who think that killing an animal is fundamentally evil. So the question then becomes is why, so we keep restricting our ability to harvest wildlife. I tell people all the time, fur trappers, when a fur trapper goes into the woods, he generally doesn't change the habitat. So talk about green jobs. It doesn't get much more renewable than this. You're able to go into a forest, trap the animals that are there, leave, and no one really knew you were there. Because the earth God creates a productive planet. Next generation comes through all well and good, and this is what a regulated harvest is all about.
He really stresses on some really interesting points there. And again, going back to this filmmaker, it's a great little film. It's like 50 minutes long, and it really, describes the wolf population and how it was falling on deaf ears of the Congress that, they passed it to put, these wolves in Yellowstone, and it was a small amount at the time. And then, one thing led to another, and nobody kept track of the wolf population. And then it grew and grew and grew and grew, and it killed off, all the elk and all these larger animals that, these ranchers and people that, raise these animals, their livelihood is just decimated, and it's a powerful film. It really is. And it's on your website, so you should go to that website.
It's on our YouTube channel. It's the JD allowed us to have it on our website and our YouTube channel, which is really nice of him because it's one of my favorite documentaries. Yeah. And I think the punchline too for that documentary is the fact that two things. One, you're right. I don't believe in unintended consequences anymore. There's no such thing. That was completely intended. They reintroduced those wolves to decimate the elk herds and cattle ranchers. And again, it's about the destruction of private property, number one. Number two, he touches briefly on sustainable development or Agenda 2030, which is all about inventory, monitor, and control. And if you keep that in mind as you watch the documentary, that's what they are all trying to impose on Americans. And it is a destruction of ownership of private property, which is the heart of
all of these policies, and inventory, monitor, and control is what that is all about.
Yeah, I mean, throughout the film, I mean, he interviews these ranchers and these people that do this for a living, generations of their family doing this for a living, and because of people in DC and people in these city settings that make the laws and they don't understand them. They don't understand how they do their business. What I mean, the farmers and the ranchers. That it's causing a lot of problems. And in Montana, I mean, Montana is at one time was the elk capital of the world. To go hunting and it's all about sportsmen out there. It's all about all about that, and it's really a shame that the actions of a few affect the many. You know what I mean? And but talk to me about HHUS. What is HHUS and what does this stand for?
You mean HSUS? Right?
Yeah.
HSUS is the Humane Society of the United States, and that is a national. They're based in Washington, D.C. They have a legislative arm, which is the Humane Society Legislative Fund. They lobby. The Humane Society of the United States is humane in name only. They are betraying Americans every single day with those sad commercials that you see on late night news shows and with the shivering dog. Has anybody ever stopped to think, hey, why is that cameraman not stopping what he's doing and helping that dog? It's because that's how they raise money. All they do is raise money. They don't have anything to do with animals. So stop sending them money, because that's how they are working to destroy animal ownership and animal agriculture through policy at the local, state, and federal level with lawyers and lobbyists. They do a lot of they're very busy with their lawyers. They are implementing what we call sue and settle, where they force they create a crisis that you're forced to defend yourself against, and they are, they take you to court and they basically bleed you dry financially until you can no longer defend yourself. And that is another ploy that they put forth, and it is happening as you and I sit here tonight. I know of at least a dozen zoos and different animal parks that are being forced out of business because they are having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to defend themselves. But that's what these animal rights groups do. PETA, HSUS, or the Humane Society of the United States, ASPCA, and there's a lot of splinter groups that they sound great. Farm Sanctuary, Animal Sanctuary. They sound like, I want animals to be there. But these people have very nefarious intentions for both animals and the owners who raise, breed, and work with animals. They have nothing good in store for any of them, and they're eroding our American way of life. And that is a fact.
I have a commercial clip that was run on the Super Bowl back in, I think it was a few years ago, 2016, I believe it is. And it's pretty powerful. So I'm going to run it and we'll discuss it.
I'll never learn to fetch or play hide and seek. I won't become a trapeze artist or watch ping pong. And I won't ever get to play with my best friend. I couldn't grow up because PETA killed me.
Shockingly, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals has killed more than 33,000 animals since 1998. Don't support the hypocrites at PETA. Support your local animal shelter. Find out more at PETAKillsAnimals.com.
I mean, powerful. And for a Super Bowl commercial, to have that shown on the Super Bowl. You got to change minds, and what you're doing. Hopefully, you got to get out there and you're doing it. I mean, you're a busy woman, and you're in the fight, and hats off to you. You know, and I'm sure that across the country, whoever's watching this, you know, they agree with you and your fight, you know, for them. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So it's a crazy business. But somebody has to have a voice, you know? Yeah.
Well, we're not, unfortunately, this is as you pointed out earlier as well, this is a PR battle, which is the most important of all that we're working on. We are not going to win by explaining to lawmakers how great we do things or that we do things right. You know, so many people are being lied about, and it makes them look defensive if they tell everyone how great we do things. What really needs to happen is what that commercial spot just did. And that is pull back the veil and expose the truth about what animal rights means, what animal rights extremists are doing, and what they're trying to achieve at the local, state, and federal levels through policy. And the legislative battle is ground zero to protect your rights. Okay. And that is really important for Americans to understand. Whether you're in this fight to protect animal ownership or animal enterprise or animal agriculture, it spills over into many things.
Sure.
And we have witnessed that firsthand in this last year. We are really, truly, Americans better, you know, find their sense of discernment and make sure that they question everything. And if it's, you know, if it's something that is a deceptive campaign, these radical groups will figure out a way to masquerade as the good guys. You know, they name their companies things like the Humane Society of the United States. And you just think that they care about animals and they know everything they need to know about the raising and keeping of animals, but nothing could be further from the truth.
Exactly.
But I can't emphasize enough to your audience tonight that we are truly at a tipping point in America right now. And we're not going to win, as I said, by explaining how great we do things. We have to realize that we're all being conditioned, and we're being conditioned into immediately pointing the finger. In America, Americans are innocent until proven guilty. But we're so quick because of the mainstream media to immediately decide that people are guilty. And just by the names that are used against animal agriculture and people who raise animals, I mean, they've really come up with some awful names for them. And to slander against them. But, you know, it's really important for people to understand that they're working to normalize radical lifestyles or a radical goal. And I don't want to live in that America.
No.
I don't want to live there. I want to live where those who raise, breed, and work with animals are continued to be lauded and revered because they are doing the yeoman's work to put food on our plate every day. And if we put them out of business, which through regulatory reform, which is going to happen under this new administration, buckle up because it's coming. We will be importing more food from China and other countries because less than 1.5% of the population in the United States grows and raises our food.
Yep.
Pretty miraculous.
And the food is going to be manufactured. It's not going to be
fake meat.
Fake meat.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. You know, there's a group down in Florida. It's a sanctuary for bears. It's called Paradise. Have you heard of it?
Ah, yes. Oh, yes. I love Monica Weldy and the Weldy Bears, a very special place. It's actually a bear preserve. They do an amazing job. They've hand raised their bears. The Weldy family is very, very special. They have worked with, this is a perfect example of a family where this tradition and this way of life has been handed down for generations. And they've learned animal husbandry from the previous generation on how to care and keep for animals and, you know, keep them content and provide for all their needs. That is an amazing family. And they are the gold standard, quite frankly.
I have a video of their little sanctuary that they have there. And it was done for a TV spot for a news program. But I want to run it and show the folks out there. Incredible. These bears, amazing. And how
Very
they're
special.
trained and taken care of. Check it out.
Out, it's a most unusual sight. A couple taking their brown bears for an afternoon stroll. Every day, Johnny and Monica Weldy spend quality time with these gentle giants, walking, playing, and just looking after their brown bears.
I think it's a very different occupation. It's not your average one, but we feel blessed.
Blessed because Johnny and Monica are caretakers of 8 European brown bears. But to really understand their love for these wild creatures, you need to look into the Weldy photo albums. Johnny's grandfather became famous when he began working with bears 80 years ago. His expertise with these giants led him to Hollywood, working with some of the biggest names around. The Weldy name is now synonymous with bears. Even Disney calls on Johnny and Monica's bears for their blockbuster productions. And at this year's Florida State Fair, the Weldys were given official Yankee uniforms to perform their bear show in. Apparently, Mr. Steinbrenner himself is a big fan of their performance.
You want to be on the news? You do. A movie star bear, you are, yeah.
But creating a movie star is difficult. Johnny and Monica spend their entire lives catering to these creatures. The bears demand attention, not to mention food. The Weldys spend $35,000 a year to feed these guys. But they never forget that these are wild animals.
Their senses are so keen, they can hear so far away and smell so far away. They know when you really have no fear and you truly love them. And then they're compassionate with us for that.
Now, it's a bit intimidating walking along with a bear that weighs nearly 400 pounds, but I found out the secret to this. Have marshmallows, and they'll be kind to you. Come on, Carol, come on.
The Weldy said my next step with Carol the bear was to ask for a kiss.
Kiss, 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 kiss. Aw, thank you, Carol.
What I realized about these creatures is that they live a good life here, climbing trees, plenty of land to run around, and they even have their own lake to swim in. And the Weldy bear tradition will likely continue long after Johnny and Monica are gone. This is their son Johnny, who loves spending time with these creatures, and will likely be showcasing these bears for years to come.
That is amazing. To see those bears, those big bears, just cuddle up to us, to humans. And you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, if you see one of those bears, you always run the other way. But you know, you see the care that, you know, that they have, and they're like babies. You know, they're docile. They're extremely friendly. Used in motion pictures and used in TV shows, and again, you know, it mentions that how they're taken care of, how the food that they eat, and the expense that goes to them from you know, Monica and her husband. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, the real gift that they give to the public is when they go and exhibit at fairs and other events and share that with the public. It's not often, like you said, you get to see a grizzly bear or other bears up close in person. No, I don't know if that was a grizzly, but
usually you might run up a tree.
But you care about these animals because you had a life-changing encounter up close with these bears. And that is truly a gift that the Weldy family shares with the public. And that's why exhibiting animals is so important. But these animal rights people want to rob us of that and eliminate that from our lives. It's a crime. And these, obviously, those bears are well cared for, but you know, they'll find something to vilify. It's crazy.
Well,
that's what we're up against.
You're in a fight, Mindy, and you know, God bless you for hanging in there for these people who's their livelihoods, and especially now with COVID and this pandemic. You know, it affects everybody differently, and I can only imagine how it affects, you know, ranchers and farmers too, because they, you know, it affects them differently. So, you know, having a group like yourself, and I'll just put it back up there so everybody can go to your website and to you know, put a little plug there and you know, join the group. You know, hey, look, you know, it's where there's you know, what's the saying? Where there's many, there's mass, there's power, there's
yes.
And you know, this is a very important issue for people that own livestock and people that handle that type of thing. So Mindy, I want to thank you so much for being a part of the show tonight and to exposing, these radical groups that, affect everybody. It might not affect, me, living in a metropolitan city so much, but it does. Pets, it affects down to the small little cat on your couch. It can affect that, and then food supply, and all that we were talking about tonight, and so important. So thank you so much for being part of this show. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun. Love being here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we covered a lot, and there's a lot to digest in this program. You offer a lot of information, and I think that by going to the website, it gives people easy access to understand what we were all talking about tonight. Is documents up there, is pictures, videos, easy for you to understand what the difference is, and this is important. This is important.
All Americans have a stake in this fight because, again, this is about eroding our Constitution and eroding our constitutional right to private property. So everyone has skin in the game on this. But like you said, this impacts everybody who has a puppy on their lap to a steak on their plate. So
it really does.
We provide an opportunity for this to become a collective fight, and that's why we're a member-based company. And so we can't fight back without our members and donations. That's just a fact. So it keeps us going. And we're in our 11th year of business now. So we have been seasoned in this fight now. Yeah. That's great. So thank you.
And you work in the angles. You're trying, you have a voice, in DC, and you got a lot on your plate. My God, 66 pages. I couldn't print them all out. It's crazy across our country of different legislations. It's amazing. But thanks again, Mindy.
It's awful.
Yes, I know it is.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
So thank you. Thank you very much for having me, George. It was really fun. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. Wow. Mindy, she's got a lot on her plate, but you know what? They have the right person driving the bus. And I think Mindy is going to take her voice and take this passion that she has for this subject and fight the good fight for all of us, and it's a really important subject. So tune in again on Sunday night with legendary character actor, writer, and acting teacher, Alan Miller is going to be here at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on next Sunday night, right here on the Buzz Talk Live show. That's all for tonight, folks. Thanks so much for joining me. And this was a really important show to get the word out on this really important subject. All right. Have a great evening and good night, America.